started. Thank you for joining us live. My name is Amy Weber, and I am joined by Jennifer Volpe and Anna Goldstein. And we are three of the therapists that make up Speak, Learn, and Play, which is, if you don't know, a pediatric therapy practice in the Park Slope Gowanus section of Brooklyn. Jen is a speech therapist, I'm a mental health therapist, and Anna is an occupational therapist. We are going to talk today about transitions from each of our different perspectives, and we will each give you sort of an overview of how we think about transitions, and then there will be lots of time for questions at the end. So what does it mean to transition? A transition is literally a change from one environment, activity, or experience to another. And it's completely natural that transitions or changes bring about uncertainty and anxiety in children. So what's happening for kids during a transition? Our human brain is scanning for safety 4 times every single second. And the information for safety comes from the inside, which is our own internal subjective experience, the outside, which is our environment, and the in-between, which is our relationships. And if the information that we are receiving is mostly safe, then we can rest into connection mode. But if the information that we're receiving is mostly not safe or it feels dangerous to us, then we move into protection mode. And protection mode is where we find the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn types of responses that everybody is familiar with. So when you tell your child that it's time to put on their shoes, grab their lunchbox, and leave for the school bus, what is happening for your child? How do they feel about the school bus, right? That's their environment. School is their environment. Is it a safe place? Does it feel overstimulating? Is it loud? Do they have friends to sit with? All of that is going to play into the transition of moving from the front door onto the school bus. How do they feel about shoes? Do they love wearing shoes? Are they a nuisance? Are their shoes comfortable? Are they uncomfortable? Are they too tight or too loose? How does your child feel about leaving you? Is it exciting? Are they looking forward to their day? Or are they terrified? And is it really stressful for them? All of those feelings are going to lead towards safe or not safe and put their brain in protection mode versus connection mode. So what can you do from my mental health perspective? The number one thing our kids need from us is a confident adult. And if you think about how you feel when you go through any amount of change, you want to know who's going to take care of you, right? Whether it's a big change like divorce or sickness, life-threatening illness, or leaving the house to get on the school bus in the morning. Those are all changes. And as a kid, you want to know who's going to be taking care of you. So kids need to know that the adult is calm and able to manage this. So the first thing that you're going to do is regulate yourself before you approach your child for this transition. And that can look like any number of things: taking a deep breath, putting your hand on your heart, getting a drink of water, whatever is going to soothe you and regulate you to be the confident adult in this situation. That's what you want to do. Then you want to decrease the distance. And I would say that most parenting Challenges can be dealt with by decreasing the distance, which just means getting closer to your child. It is really hard to regulate from across the room, or from a different room. But being next to your child, you can share your regulation with them and prepare them to face the coming change. So you want to regulate yourself, you want to get close to your child, you want to validate their feelings. This is hard for you. You are upset. You really don't want to go. Whatever, just a few words, whatever sentence you can offer to let them know that you see what they are experiencing, not trying to talk them out of it, but really just validating. Yes, this is so hard. It is so scary. You really don't want to go. And then you're going to offer your support. So that might look like, and we have to catch the school bus. How can I support you? And just asking your child, how can I support you, puts you back on the same team, which is super important. You want to be, as much as possible, on a steady adult on the same team as your child. So those are my 4 strategies. Regulate yourself, approach your child, decrease the distance, be right next to them, validate their feelings with a short few words or sentence, and then offer your support. How can I support you in getting onto the bus this morning? How can I support you in getting your shoes on, whatever the next step is. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Anna, who will talk about the OT's perspective on transitions.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. I am the OT with Speak, Learn, and Play. And one thing I just wanted to add, which can make transitions difficult for your child, is that if they're in the middle of doing something that they're enjoying and they're being asked to stop to then transition to, I don't know, school, OT, whatever, obviously it's going to be hard for them because they're in the middle of enjoying something. So that's another point I wanted to add. And then from an OT perspective, like Amy had started to mention, with, having your child put their shoes on and get ready to go on the bus, is that sensory component. Children with sensory sensitivities, a transition can be pretty daunting for them because they know that maybe if they're going to the restaurant, it's going to be really smelly. There are going to be a lot of people there. Maybe there are bright lights and loud noise. So it's important to, if your child has sensory sensitivities, to create a portable sensory tool bag. So in that tool bag, you might want to include noise canceling headphones, sunglasses, nose plugs, a fidget toy, a chewy toy, just so they can have something to help regulate themselves and to help decrease those noxious sensory experiences in the environment. It's important to remind your child that they could always take a break, and to prepare your child for what the environment might look like from a sensory perspective. Okay, we're going to a restaurant. What do you think it's going to be like? Remember, you only have to eat what's on your plate. If something's smelly across the room, you don't have to eat that. You can always take a break in the bathroom where it's more quiet. We're bringing your noise canceling headphones so it won't be so loud, that sort of thing. And then a few other strategies, not particularly related to sensory sensitivity, that I like to use sometimes in my sessions, or to suggest to parents, are first, I use a visual schedule in all of my sessions. And this just helps children anticipate what's coming next. So that some tasks like brushing teeth, which you would do with your child at home, which is probably not a favorite task, is followed by a tea party, something that's really fun, that they could look forward to. So what I recommend if your child is having trouble with transitions is making a simple schedule for the entire day, previewing it with your child so they know what to expect, reviewing it with them in the morning. And it's important to create consistency and routine so that your child begins to be able to predict what comes next, and they'll be maybe less anxious about the day. So then, every morning your child will learn that, okay, after breakfast, we brush our teeth, then we have a fun tea party, then we get to play with blocks and we have puzzle time, and then we help mom make lunch. So then soon a really challenging and maybe anxiety provoking activity like brushing teeth just becomes a small part of a really fun morning routine. If your child is anticipating going to an event at a new location and they're really kind of nervous about a new location, like, a birthday party at a gymnastics gym, I recommend looking at photos online of the specific location and using an animated voice and expression to help turn that fear into excitement. Oh, look, the gymnastics gym has a rock wall, just like at OT. You love the rock wall in OT. I think you're really going to like this gymnastics gym. I think this birthday party is going to be awesome. Sort of like giving them a pep talk about really specific aspects of the location. A commonly used strategy is bringing along a favorite stuffed animal or favorite toy, because this allows your child to have something familiar in a potentially new and scary environment. Um, I like to add movement or music to transitions. So, okay, we're gonna go into the gym. Let's tiptoe like a turtle, or let's stomp our feet into the gym. Or you could say, okay, we're gonna go to the supermarket. Let's hop on one foot into the supermarket. These strategies can serve as a fun distraction. You can also ask your child to be a helper. So, if you are in the supermarket with your child and you have to go back to the car and they're having so much fun in the supermarket, you can ask them to be a helper, because children really enjoy responsibility and an opportunity to impress. And it's important that you don't ask them like, oh, do you think you can help me carry the bags? Because that gives them an opportunity to say no. So instead, you could say, oh, these bags are so heavy. You're so strong. Please help me and carry them to the car. And then afterwards, give a lot of praise. Oh my goodness, I can't believe you helped me carry these bags. I love having you help me. And then my favorite strategy, the last one I'm going to mention, is giving two preferred choices. I find this really, really effective. So if the goal is to transition to dinner, which is, let's say, not a desirable activity, you're going to offer two choices that would appeal to your child. So should we frog jump to dinner or spin like a tornado to dinner? So either way, they're going to dinner, but offering a choice empowers them, especially our kids who are so used to being told what to do. It makes them feel like they have a choice, even though in the end, they're still going to dinner. Um, and allowing them to choose might help them feel more in control of the situation. And then one last thing I'll add is that it's so important to follow through with these transitions. Um, if your child is experiencing anxiety going to a certain location, not going will only make it scarier. And going to a location routinely will desensitize them and lessen their fears for the future. And so I will pass the baton to Jen. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, I'm Jen. I am the speech language pathologist at Speak, Learn, and Play. And when I think about transitions, I really think about how do we use language to make those transitions easier. Language itself is regulating, but the language that we use matters almost just as much as the strategies we use. If you have a child who is anxious around transitions or even has sensory needs around transitions, their body is kind of in that, fight mode a little bit. So the less language you use, the better. It can be really difficult to process a lot of language, lengthy explanations, if they're kind of also dealing with a lot of the emotions and maybe even the sensory pieces of transitions. A lot of what I do in speech and, even in my own family is also like more trying to prep for transitions and using language to support moving from one activity, going to someplace new. One thing I'm really big on is really using less words. Amy talked about, coming up with a sentence, that sentence should not be more than, 5 words. And then putting pauses in between. So something like, I know this is hard. Let's go get your shoes. And that will give kids time to, to process what's happening and it's not so overwhelming. Using specific language, especially with time concepts, first we are going to brush our teeth and then we are going to have a tea party. Doing things in an order can also, and making sure that is, a part of a routine can, make it more structured and a little less scary. A lot of the things that Anna mentioned also work in terms of language, giving choices, big, that or piece, it does give the kids a little bit of power to make the transition easier, but the goal is still the same. So anytime you can have an or statement, sometimes even in my own family, it's like, do you want to eat dinner or do you want to take a bath first? Because that, in our house, that is a big challenge. The transitions between going to dinner, taking a bath, and just kind of like our bedtime routine. So I find that using or statements and giving some control actually helps with those transitions. And then, as Amy said, decreasing the distance. I'm big on eye contact. When we need to make a transition in speech, I'll make sure that I'm at eye level and I'm close. Because if I'm putting something away and my head is away or my body is turned away from my client, my child, that doesn't help the transition, right? It can only, it just doesn't feel as safe. And then, Anna talked about going someplace new. So what I often do for my kids, especially when they're coming to speech, is, and I'm going to try and share this, is something called a social story. And a social story is just like a quick story that helps kids visualize what's going to be happening, but also, sorry, I'm distracted because I'm trying to pull this up, but gives them a little bit of more information about their environment. So let's see. So if you're going to a doctor appointment that feels a little scary, sometimes I would go online and try to find a picture of what the building looks like, maybe find a picture of what the doctor looks like. This is something that I've used. Sorry, oh, what happened? Here we go. Something that I've used for, kids coming to speech therapy. This happens to be my own son, but a story, Lucas goes to speech. You're gonna go see Jen, me. I help kids with their talking. I'll include pictures of the office. It just seems to reduce the anxiety about that. And then also, I know, because that's hard. Nobody, nobody has the time to do that all the time. Even with my own kid, we've drawn pictures to see what it's going to be like. Here we go. This is something that we used to do because leaving the park was hard. And just like today, we're going to the park or the playground, and the playground is so much fun, and talking about how much time we have. And then, what was really helpful for, when leaving the playground was my son really liked to draw. A map of all the things that he saw. So you have those I don't know what they're called, but you can draw on it and you press a button and it erases really quickly. And as we were leaving, he would be drawing all the different routes, and I would give him a choice. Well, do you want to go this way today or this way? And that really cut down a lot of the meltdowns that we were having around the park. And I'm no artist, but it was fun, and it was fun to even do that with him. And then in our speech sessions, sometimes we will draw, maybe not necessarily a social story, but we will draw out the steps of what the session is going to look like. And one last sort of strategy that I like is also pairing routines with music. I think Anna had mentioned something like that. We used to have a kid in speech, and the only way that he would leave speech is if he listened to the Single Ladies by Beyonce on his way out the door. So, we would cue it up on our phone, and as soon as he heard the Single Ladies, he would dance his way out. And, it made it for such a nice, because he would often have a nice session and then kind of, really struggle with the transition, and it would kind of negate some of the work that we had done. But this really made the whole entire session just really fun. And oh gosh, you can imagine how long ago that was when Single Ladies was still popular. But I will never forget that. And then I had another parent who would use podcasts to help their kids with transitions. And this one was particularly around brushing teeth, and listening to a podcast for 2 minutes. I mean, that's a little different than a transition, but still the same concept, right? That, if you can find a podcast or something that has a specific amount of time, well, we're going to do this until the podcast ends, and then we're going to do something else. And I think that the link to those, like, I don't know if it's called chompers or brushy fun facts, is in your handout. And I also put in your handout some, just some alternatives to use, some alternative language to use with your kids while you're doing transitions. So I guess then we can open it up to questions. What would you guys like to ask us? Anything?
I'm so sorry I was late. Hi, Anna. I had a meeting that ran late, but
You froze, Shira.
I picked them up. It's like they hate me, or there's like something with that transition of like leaving school to like me, and like, or maybe it's like knowing what's coming. Like, it's just like, I feel like my kids are like in complete meltdown mode. And I get so frustrated because I'm like, I haven't seen you all day and I'm finally here to spend time with you. I don't know if you touched on this at all. So it's not like we're doing something new, like we're going to the playground. It's like we do the same thing every day, and I pick you up from your activity or from school. And then it's like I feel like my kids just like hate me, but I know maybe they're just like unloading, like they can finally like be themselves when they're around me. They've had to hold it in for so long, but I really struggle like daily with that transition, that 4, 5, 6 p.m. picking them up transition.
What do you typically do right when they get home?
We typically have the battle of like putting your shoes where they belong, putting your jacket where they belong, washing your hands. I've tried to make it really easy for them. They have like a little hook now that kids like their eye level. They have a little bin for their shoes. Washing their hands is still a fight. And then we usually eat dinner. Sometimes if I still have to finish dinner because work was running late, I'll put like some coloring or some kind of an activity for them to do on the kitchen table to avoid them like demanding food, or I'll just have like some carrot sticks and apple slices out while I'm finishing.
So
But it's the transition is even before then. It's like when I pick them up and then we have to make our way home.
How do you guys get home? Sorry, Anna.
We
Like, do you
walk.
walk, subway?
We walk.
I just wanted to say, we talked a lot about giving kids two preferred choices. So, you know, maybe on the walk home, instead of going straight home, you could say, oh, guys, we have a few extra minutes. Do you want to walk to the park, or do you want to pick up something yummy at the corner store? Something to maybe help make that transition from school to home more fun and exciting. Also, giving them that choice kind of makes them feel a little bit more in control of the situation. So I would sort of think about how to pair you with something fun and exciting and new to sort of change it up. Jen, what were you going to say? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, I was just curious about how they were getting home, because that can make a difference. I think, Shira, you nailed it when you're like, they're just kind of unloading. They've had to keep it together all day long, and then they just kind of are like falling apart because you're their safe person. And I'm wondering, I mean, Anna had some really great suggestions about, you know, if you're walking, you know, turning it into like a movement, you know, we have to hop, maybe getting a little bit more of that like angsty energy out. Right, like you had said, like leapfrog or leaping to, you know, I'm wondering if there's a way to break up your walk. Like, okay, when we get to the first block, we're going to do hops, and then maybe we'll take giant steps to the next next landmark. Yeah, and then I mean, you said the routine's always the same. So, you know, just reiterating, like, this is what we're going to do. It's going to take us 5 minutes to get home. Then we're going to put our shoes on, and that, you know, and using that concrete language too.
I wonder also if there's a way to do a little front loading of connection before you even start walking home, because that's what they're really looking for. They're looking for connection to you after a long day, and you are their soft landing. So whether that's just sitting outside of school for 5 minutes and talking about the high and the low point of their day, or coming with snacks and handing them those snacks and getting them to eat before you even take a step in the direction of home, that can be super regulating, making sure that they have water bottles, all of those things, and slowing it down a little bit so that it's not such a rush. They've been rushing all day, so rushing to get home might feel like, I can't do this anymore, Mom. What part of this do you not understand? So front loading even just 5 or 10 minutes before you even take a step towards home can just bring the temperature down a little bit. It's hard. I mean, you know, there's also like, is putting their coat on hooks and shoes in place and washing hands, like, none of those things are what I would consider to be like 911 emergencies. So kind of picking and choosing your battles about what can you let go in, like, when they get home from school. Can they, you know, just use hand sanitizer at the door and wash hands before dinner? You know, and for some parents, it's like, no, I can't let that go. I literally cannot, Amy. But, you know, and that's, you know, you have to live in your house. I don't, but, what can you kind of let go and say, okay, it's just going to be a little bit messy. for now, or I'm going to pick up their coats, or I'm going to help them take their coats off. And, it might be a way that they're looking for care from you, again, after being apart from you all day. So even though they're more than capable of doing it, they might just need a little extra TLC.
Thank you. That was all helpful.
Anybody else have a question?
I guess this really isn't so much a question, but I do have a comment, which is that I've tried to use that technique of like showing them where they're going, to sort of coerce my child into doing things, and it's not been super effective. I do think that my issue is not necessarily transitions, as it is something else. But what do you do when you go through all that effort to like show them everything and try to make it fun, and you create all these things, and you still just get a kid that's just stuck in place with something that you need to do, like you still need to go to the store, or you need to take them to whatever aftercare program. I don't know if there's a question in there anywhere, but that's sometimes my experience, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's when the how can I support you question can be really helpful. I know you really don't want to go try this new after school program. It's scary. It's terrifying. You have no idea what it's going to be like. You don't even want to look at the pictures. It looks awful. And you're going to go, and how can I support you, and see if they can start to generate some ideas for themselves, rather than, putting yourself back on the same team as opposed to being two opposing forces. And sometimes the previewing, for some kids, it's amazing. And for some kids, it's like, don't show them, don't tell them anything beforehand, because it becomes overwhelming and overstimulating for them. And then they have more time to kind of ruminate about how this is going to be the worst thing in the world for them. So sometimes less is more. For some kids, you have to really know your kid about how much previewing they can tolerate, and how much it's like, I can't, because then they will be ruminating on this for the next month, or the next week, or the next 3. They won't sleep tomorrow night because the next day we have this thing. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. Noted. That is helpful. The how can I support you piece, because it sometimes it does come down to the fact that I just have to like put my foot down and say like, okay, but we're doing this,
yeah.
and and it, yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
it's so
okay.
important to that balance. I know that this is so hard. This is awful. This is the worst thing in the world that I'm asking you to do. And I know that you can do it. And I think we have to find the balance between in that statement. Like, yes,
Mhm.
I'm going to validate this for you. It stinks. And we're going to get through it. And I'm going to support you in getting through it. And I'm here to support you in getting through it. Anna,
Okay.
did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I also just wanted to say, Jen had talked about first then statements. So, first we're gonna go to karate, and then we get to make pizza for dinner. Ooh, what are you gonna do? What toppings are you gonna put on your pizza? Just making sure that there's something that they can look forward to after the less desirable activity sometimes helps.
Okay. Thank you.
That getting stuck is tough. In the
I had
no.
a
Oh, go ahead.
hey, this is Helen. I had a question about sort of when you signposted something, like a transition, like we're going to go to karate now, for example, but your kid is doing something they really enjoy doing at the moment. And how do you get them sort of, they know they've been told, but the pull of what they're doing is making it that much harder for them to say, okay, I've got to like put the toys away or stop, or God forbid it's not karate. It's like, we got to do homework now, or we got to do something we really don't want to do. How do you get that extra sticky situation unstuck?
Sorry. I think I would start with it. I know that there are always parts of the day that you may not be able to prepare for. But if you know, like if it's a homework issue, I really like using timers, and time, there's something called a time timer where it's visual and it's like, okay, they can see how much time they have left, and giving a specific amount of time to that like preferred activity. And then again, being like, okay, I see that you're playing with your cars and trains. It's awesome. I love it. But when this timer goes off, it's going to be time for homework. Then, you can go back to it, or we won't clean it up. You're going to have to do the homework. That's important. But also making something like homework, like a routine. We always do it. We have a snack and then we do homework. I think that might be helpful. But I know what you mean in terms of, those things where it's like not an everyday thing, or maybe it's not something that's a routine, and they're really enjoying it. But I think if you know that, and you can anticipate that, there's something coming up, you guys, you need to leave the house, I might use a time timer to support that. And one that's visual, I actually have one right here, and you can see it all, you can get them in all different sizes, and then the time will go up and then it'll beep. And then, giving a 5-minute warning, but not, I don't know that I would say like every minute, okay, you have 1 more minute, you have 1 more minute, but making it visual and very concrete, and just giving them the space to sort of play and know. It might take a few tries to kind of get that, but that could help.
I think that transition, especially when it's like, okay, we've got to wind this down, whatever it is, and move on to this thing that you really don't want to do, whether it's homework or bath time or dinner time. I think sitting there rather than just saying, okay, you have 5 more minutes and then walking away. I lose track of the time. I lose track of the 5 minutes. And then I'm like, oh my God, well, you didn't clean up. And blah, blah. And then I have my own internal sense of panic. So one of the things that I will do is say, you have 5 more minutes, and then sit down next to them. So like similar to how poor Shira is like the battling ram of her kids when they come out of school, you're the soft landing. So we're ending this. And I'm going to be that soft landing for you as we are making the transition to do this other thing. So I'm not abandoning you. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. You're going to show me whatever you're working on. I'd start to really engage and ask questions. Show me what you're doing on the screen. Show me what you're watching. Show me what you've built here. And then that it's similar to decreasing the distance. It's just being a little bit of a soft landing and a guide to transition into the next activity.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Also, one more thing, Helen, is like, how can you make the transition fun? Can we dance to your favorite song as we go upstairs? Let's race up the stairs. Who do you think's gonna win? Doing animal walks, offering a choice. Do you want to spin like a tornado or frog jump? Just to make it more fun.
And I was thinking one more thing also, sometimes, depending on what they're doing, if it's something to show, I like to take a picture of it. And then also have the kid, like once it's done and we're moving on to something else, to talk about it while we're also moving on. And then if there's a picture too, like, and the kids can come back to it, and kind of start where they left off. And sometimes that helps, but really for like building like Legos or whatever, or even coloring. But I find that taking a picture can be helpful too.
I have so many pictures on my phone of various built things that were built, magnet tile structures, train track setups. And very rarely does anybody ask to see them again, but there's something about the act of taking the picture that preserves it for them. And if they do ask to see it, I still have it. I know for some kids, we talked a lot about younger kids. For some older kids, checklists work really well. And a lot of parents will have success, but although it takes time, it can take, you can make a checklist of everything that needs to get done in the morning, and but it will take a while for it to really take hold, and for your kid to take ownership of that. So if it doesn't work the first time, or it does work the first time and then it doesn't work the second, third, and fourth time, don't lose hope. Just nothing works all the time, and some things take a while to get into the routine. And changing how you do things is another form of transition, which can also be, disruptive to kids. It can be a little bit put them off kilter. So if you've always responded in the same way, and suddenly you're like, okay, I'm going to try asking them if they'd like support. Kids might be like, whoa, what are you? And there can be a little bit of a backlash before they realize, like, oh no, this is just they're expecting you to react the usual way and you're showing them something different, which can just, unnerve kids a little bit.
I was going to ask another question about
Sure.
transitions when there are distractions. So my son is 6 and he has a younger brother who's 3. And so sometimes, his younger brother will be kind of running amok or playing with toys with him. And then it's time for him to transition to do something, but his younger brother is still playing. And so seeing his younger brother playing kind of, again, creates this pull of, I don't want to stop doing what I'm currently doing because he's not stopping, or there's music playing, or there's something else that looks interesting. Again, I don't know if there's like any best practices or solutions, but it's just something we regularly struggle with.
It's so not fair when one person has to do the awful thing and the other kid gets to keep playing.
Right.
Anna or Jen, do you want to jump in?
I'm trying to think what I use a lot of narrating. I mean, and this comes from more of my family life than so much my professional, because we really only do one-to-ones in the office. But narrating and making sure that I also narrate when the younger one needs to do something that does not sound, that is not fun. Like, all right, Isabel, we're going to go get you dressed or take a bath, and Lucas is going to stay here and play, so that way there's maybe a little more fairness to it. But I don't know how much kids retain that well. I mean, I feel your pain. It's something that we struggle with too. And I keep saying, well, sometimes, you have to do things and it's time for us, you and I to go. And sometimes Isabel and I have to do things. And, that's just unfortunately sort of the way it goes. But also trying to be gentle about it, and, understanding and staying close, and, offering to, like, do you want to hold my hand? And then some of the strategies about, like, how do you want to get down the hall? Do you want to, and giving choices, I find helps that a little bit too.
And validating the not fairness
Yeah.
of it. It's not fair. It's not fair that, he gets to keep playing and you have to do homework. And we have to do it.
Yeah.
So how can I
Bummer.
support you? It really stinks.
Yeah, we use a lot of it really stinks in my house too. I didn't even, I work with a lot of older kids in the office on writing and things that are definitely not so fun. And there can be some pushback about how much that, and there's a lot of like, yeah, I know it really stinks. Like, I wish that it could be different, but you know, here I am, and you and I are going to do this together.
Also, like reminding your older son, you know, that it's not over forever, you know, maybe after his bath, there can be 10 minutes, you know, put on a visual timer for him to play Legos again. And you can remind your child that, you can play Legos later and your sister has to brush her teeth then and she can't play. So, just reminding him that it's not over forever. There's another opportunity later on in the evening that can be carved out to continue playing.
Any other questions? Thank you all so much for coming live. We really appreciate it. And if you think of questions later, don't hesitate to shoot us an email. We're happy to troubleshoot with you. And you should get access to the handouts from today. And yeah, that was, yeah.
And the report.
Oh, and the recording from today.
Yep.
And March 25th, which is the last Monday of March, Anna and I will be doing a webinar on physical and emotional regulation. Jen will be in Florida, but he will.
All right.
But Anna and I will be tackling physical and emotional regulation together. And we would love to have you back, and happy to answer any questions that you have about that. So thank you so much.
So much for your question.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.